How you doing, everybody? It's Tim Drudge here once again. It's a view from the South Stands, and I'm coming to you on Friday after a little event that I was lucky enough to get invited to today, the Toronto FC put on. It was the annual President's Breakfast. It was at Real Sports Bar and Grill, and I want to thank TFC's Media Relations Director Extraordinaire Mike Massaro for helping me get in and take a look at that this morning. I went with the intention of videotaping all of Mr. Manning's and Mr. Bezbatchenko's remarks. And of course, I get there and I find out that the club is live streaming it on TFC.TorontoFC.ca. So I kiboshed that idea, but I just want to pass along myself some photos that I took today. And my better half came along and she graciously helped me with some photographic duties as well. Thank you, Crystal. And I want to pass those along, particularly photos of the new kit, which I think is pretty sharp. I'll get to that in a moment. But before I do get into the kit, which was, at the end of the day, probably the primary reason why TFC had that event today, was to launch their new 2017 kit, and also a primary kit, and also, of course, announce that Bank of Montreal is renewed for a number of years as the kit sponsor for Toronto FC, which is a welcome news for a lot of people. Financially, I'm not sure what the terms of the arrangement are or the years. I think that's been released elsewhere today. But personally, I'm pretty pleased. I don't want there to be anything cheesy like Barbasol or Bimbo or any of these stupid things on our kits. I'll take a heartless Canadian bank any day. Thank you very much. The thing the remarks that Bill Manning and primarily Tim Bezbatchenko covered off today, if you haven't seen them, the one thing that came across, and I was jotting down notes and I was tweeting about this when the event was going on as well, is the word continuity. Continuity, I think, emanates from everything that the club has been doing in the offseason, which I'm going to talk about in a quick second as well. And I think their approach going forward as well. Manning talked about how now that TFC has solidified itself as an upper echelon club on the pitch, to match the work that they've been doing off the pitch for a number of years. That's something that they're working right now on sustaining. Bezbatchenko chimed in and said, okay, well, the reason why we're able to sustain that now is we've cut down finally on the player turnover. Then he got in, of course, after some questions about Victor Vasquez and, of course, Chris Mavinga as well, the center back / fullback. Going into this season, which starts next week, believe it or not, in Salt Lake City, next Saturday evening. The only real issue TFC has on its entire roster right now is probably the fact that there's no real natural cover for Steven Beitashour at right back. If, God forbid, something were to happen to him, does the team revert back to a 4 at the back, play a diamond to make up for that? Do they move Zavaleta over? Do they find another player? Do they move Morrow over to right back and slide Mavinga into the left back position? Who knows? Who knows how that's going to work? But that's the primary issue. That's by Toronto FC's very low standards over the years. That's a bounty of riches. There's depth at every position on the field. Young Mavinga, Bezbatchenko said he's going to be vying with Nick Hagelin for the left center back position, and of course the former Barcelona, Bruges, and Liga MX player Victor Vasquez that's come in, of course. That's hopefully going to try to help TFC break down a lot of people that are going to try to bunker. That was the thing that Bezbatchenko said, I think, that was most interesting, is they expect, especially with the way TFC played at the tail end of the 2016 campaign, he envisions the team playing, having to break teams down going forward. And of course, that was a bit of a challenge at times last year, particularly when the Reds in the fall of last year had a couple of really oddball games where they were up a man, up 2 men once in Orlando and still lost. So finding a way to break teams down that are putting 10 guys behind the ball is going to be the challenge, and that's why Vasquez was brought in, was to give them a different look, to allow them to try to break teams down and give Altidore and Seva and Ricketts or whoever's playing up top the opportunity to score goals. So continuity was preached, continuity has been delivered. Now let me quickly get to the new kit. As the photos at the beginning of this video attest, it's pretty straightforward. It harkens back a little bit, I think, to the 2011 kit with the onyx shoulders, and it's got the kind of very subtle red horizontal stripes. For a big boy like myself, horizontal stripes aren't exactly something that I'm a big fan of, because it makes me look like a walking widescreen TV with a test pattern on it. But I'd rather go for the vertical or a little slimming. But overall, looking at it up close, I think it's a very snazzy kit. And at the end of the day, as long as it's not ugly as sin, and as long as it doesn't have Bimbo or Barbasol or that horrible Herbalife or anything like that on there, I'm kind of happy. And that gets to the final piece today that TFC announced in conjunction with the new kit launch, is the fact that Bank of Montreal is re-upped for a number of years going forward as the shirt sponsor as well. No real surprise there on either front. So we're a week away. The Reds seem to be firing on all cylinders with a couple of minor issues in depth. I think this on paper looks to be one of the strongest, if not the strongest team that this club has ever assembled. And with the 2017 campaign just a little over a week away, can you believe it? I can't. It seems like MLS Cup was just days ago, frankly. We're going to be looking at, of course, a new season starting very, very soon. Both Manning and Bezbatchenko stated that the goal this year is twofold: Supporter Shield and to vie for the MLS Cup. I think both are well within the realm of possibility if all things go well. If we don't have injuries, if Vasquez in particular is the player that he was in Bruges, rather than the player that he was in Liga MX. Again, we'll see about that. And if he's, a Guevara-esque circa 2009 player that can help the Reds get a little more creative in the middle of the park and help break teams down, I think that might be a way that this team improves on what options they had available to them in 2016. And we know how close we came to the promised land last year. So there we go. Hope you enjoyed that. I'm going to be doing another video ahead of the game in Salt Lake next week. I want to thank you very much for watching. Come on, you Reds, and take a look at the kit, and take a look at the video of Mr. Manning and Mr. Bezbatchenko on TorontoFC.ca as well. I think it's pretty interesting to hear what they have to say. We'll talk to you next week, and we'll talk to you soon. Cheers.